Happy Friday. I'm Marta Nielsen with Utah State University Extension, and I'm so excited for my conversation today, and I'm glad that you're here to join with us today. I have Gabi Murza here with us, and we're going to talk about gardening, but in a little different sense than what you're probably used to hearing us talk about it, or in a different way than we usually talk about it here at Extension. So Gabi, for those who may not have seen the interview we did a couple weeks ago, will you just introduce yourself and let us know what it is that you do with Extension?
Sure. I work with, USU Extension, of course. I work with the HEART Initiative. I'm one of the faculty members with the Health Extension Advocacy Research and Teaching Initiative. And we do programming and outreach and different services and activities that focus on addressing opioid epidemic and kind of those related topics. So like mental health, injury prevention, chronic pain management, suicide prevention, resiliency, list goes on.
All that good stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So kind of what prompted this conversation today, we're getting ready for the Urban Homestead Expo, which is a virtual event. And I saw that Gabi was teaching a class there, and you're not a horticulture faculty, and so the topic's a little different. Tell us a little bit about what you have planned for that, and then we'll give you all a little sneak peek, a little taste of that class that's coming up.
Yes. So I'll actually be presenting on injury prevention in the garden. So how to use adaptive gardening, ergonomic tools, and also incorporating proper postures and best practices, and to be able to use tools correctly so that you're minimizing that pain and preventing injury while you're doing those fun gardening activities.
Yeah, that we all want to do and continue doing even as we get older, or health circumstances in our life may change over time and things like that. So the Urban Homestead Expo is free if you're not already registered. Go register for that. You can hear Gabi's full class, full workshop there. But give us just a few little tips, Gabi, of things that we can do. Or things to think about as we're getting ready for gardening season again.
Right. There are a couple of things. So, kind of what I talk about in what I'll be talking about is, there are a lot of benefits to gardening, but there's also the injury aspect of it, and not necessarily so much like, injury with tools like lawnmowers and things like that. But I'm talking about those kind of repetitive strain injuries, or the things we feel when we've been gardening for a couple of hours, and then at the end of the day or at the end of the weekend, our back hurts, our knees hurt, our neck hurts, those kinds of things. And so those are the kind of repetitive strain injuries that we might feel. And so we'll be talking about like some of the things that we can do when we talk about that is incorporating those best practices. So, scheduling tasks. These are kind of simple, and we know them inherently. I think it's just remembering to do them. And so how to manage expectations, how to manage and be realistic about kind of where we are physically, to be able to garden, since it kind of is a physical activity, It is exercise. So we got to treat it like that. But being able to incorporate scheduling tasks, changing tasks often. How often do you change tasks when you're doing different activities or different tasks in the garden, basically? How to dress appropriately, how to protect yourself, and then looking at what are some things that we can do to help minimize pain or prevent that injury. So we'll talk about how to adapt the garden, how to adapt our tools, so ergonomic tools, retrofitting, but also we'll be talking about how to adapt ourselves. So again, looking at actually practicing proper postures, proper procedures, how to use tools correctly, especially long-handled tools, how to lift correctly, how to kneel correctly. Those kinds of things we'll actually be practicing in the workshop.
Oh, that's great. Well, I love that you talked about how, gardening it's like exercise. Like if you approach it that way, it kind of changes the way you think about it. Like, okay, maybe I should be stretching before and after I go out and, it's essentially like doing squats when you're weeding, or, holding a a squatting position. And if your body's not used to that, you'll feel it for sure.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. So there are different ways. And like I said, I think we inherently know this stuff. It's just remembering it. And when we're in the moment and we're in an activity, so we're, pulling weeds or we're planting something, we're in that moment and we want to do that and we're so focused on that. And sometimes it just gets away from us as, we don't realize until afterwards that maybe we were in that position for a little too long.
Yeah.
And now we're kind of having to deal with the consequences of that.
Right. Right. And when you talk about injury prevention, I just have to laugh because I myself have done some not so smart things when doing yard work or gardening and hurt myself. And I think, talking about like making sure you have the right tools, that's such a good advice to make sure you don't hurt yourself.
Yeah.
I was, if you guys want to hear my embarrassing story about hurting myself in the garden, I'll tell you, Gabby. I was pruning some bushes and, we just bought our house and they were really overgrown and tall and some of the branches were pretty big and I was trying to use like some long handled, loppers, pruning shears. Yeah. But the branch I was trying to cut was far too big. So I was not using the right tool. So I was trying everything I could to, cut this branch. I ended up bracing like one handle against myself and pulling and like I broke my rib. Like,
ow.
Yeah, it was, but if I had just like stepped back and like, oh, like this is not the right tool. Like what I'm trying to do is not working and the tool I have is not the proper tool. I could have, saved myself a couple weeks of pain.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, definitely. And even if you don't have the right tool is really important for something like that. And I have definitely done that where I haven't broken a rib, but I've braced something against and tried to just use my power. And that's definitely not smart. But but even along with that is, so let's say you don't have the proper tool. Let's say you just don't have the upper body strength because you can have the right tool, but maybe your upper body strength to be able to like actually use it and power through is just not there.
Yeah.
So there's techniques, there's form that you can use to make sure that your back is straight, that your shoulders are properly placed so you're not trying to hunch and use your arms and your shoulders and your back incorrectly, and even standing in a correct position. So again, you're not hunching or you're not like twisting or anything. So it's even things like it's things like that. It's not only about the tool itself, but it's also like how do you utilize your strengths or even your weaknesses to make sure that there's still other ways to make sure that you don't hurt yourself. So those are kinds of the things, like I said, we'll kind of cover.
Well, I'm thinking of your body as a tool, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, yes. I mean, you do have bigger muscles that are definitely meant for bigger things, and then you have smaller muscles that you probably don't want to rely on, or that you can hurt a little easier just because they are smaller. So like your neck muscles are pretty small. I mean, they're not so, but we do tend to kind of stiffen our neck, especially when we have a lot of stiffness in our shoulders and we kind of power through our shoulders and our upper back. We kind of tend to also like seize up our neck or to like stiffen it, and we don't realize it. And actually what's just to kind of go along with that, I have a personal trainer and I met with her this morning because I actually pulled something in my neck yesterday from doing something really dumb and not gardening related. But I was telling her, I said, it's kind of funny. You don't realize how much you use your neck until you can't use it, until it hurts. Yes. And you have to like keep your head straight and like turn, your
whole body. Driving. That happened to me a couple weeks ago. And I thought like, oh, this is not safe for me to be driving because like it was hard to turn and look, Yeah. So that can have those carryover effects. If you hurt yourself in, doing one thing. I'm curious, Gabby, if you have any just quick little bits of advice for folks who may be doing some gardening in the meantime this week, of maybe just things to keep in mind?
Yeah, of course. The biggest rule of thumb that I would say, or the biggest thing, if you don't, if you don't have the right tools, um, if you don't have help, even, if you can't ask for help, if you're doing things yourself, make sure that you stretch. So stretching before, during, and after your gardening. So like I said, it is an exercise. It's a physical activity. So you want to treat it like that, like any other type of physical activity. So I would say stretch before you start gardening, and you don't want to stretch on cold muscles, so you do want to warm up. And a warm up could be, if you can do things like jumping jacks or running in place or something, then you can do that. But if you can't, you can take a walk, like a 5-minute walk, or even walk in place, just comfortably. You can take a walk around your yard and your garden, and at that time you can even look around and see kind of what areas you want to focus on. So you can kind of, it doesn't have to be just a walk, but you can kind of do, kill two birds with one stone, I guess.
Yeah.
So you want to warm up first, and then you stretch. And you want to stretch, since you're using your whole body, you do want to stretch all of the major muscles. But if you know that you're doing just certain activities that are utilizing certain muscles, just focus on stretches. So if you're doing a lot of stuff on your legs, on where you're going to be standing up, you want to stretch your quads, your hamstrings, your calves. If you're doing things where you'll be hunched over, you want to stretch your back, your shoulders, even your neck. Do a couple of neck stretches. So just warm up like that. And we're talking about like maybe 4 or 5 minutes of stretching. So nothing huge, nothing long. Right. During gardening, while you're gardening, we talked about switching positions. If you don't switch positions, at least get up, walk around, stretch those areas again, especially if you've been in the same position over a long period of time. In the same position for a while, just get up and stretch those areas, just to kind of stretch them out, give them a little bit of space. And then after you're done, stretch as well. And definitely have water. You do want to hydrate. So for example, for me, I'm really bad at this. I have a huge garden in the back. I have a pretty big yard. I will bring my water, start something, and then I will walk to the other side of the garden, and my water bottle will stay far away from me. So what I started doing is I have like if I'm carrying a bucket, I'll put it in the bucket, or I actually started putting a carabiner on my water bottle. It has a little loop, and I put a carabiner on it, and so I hang it off of the handle on the bucket. I have this giant trash can, one of those giant plastic tub trash can things. So I've hung it off of one of the handles, and that way it just always goes with me.
Yeah.
So
that's a great idea.
You use those little tricks that you can, but definitely stay hydrated, because that'll keep your muscles from dehydrating. Basically, your muscles do dehydrate. They get dehydrated, and then they hurt more, and then they get more sore.
Well, that's good advice. Well, and what I love about some of these ideas is it's making the chore of gardening, which, I mean, so many gardeners, they do it because they love it. It's a little bit different than just doing yard work. Like caring for a garden is its own kind of special ritual. And I think adding in stretching and changing position, and even just like checking in with your body while you're doing it. I love that mindfulness aspect, in bringing that into, working in the garden, because that is a time when you can be in nature, be connected with plants and with the soil and with your space, and being connected with your body at the same time. I just think that that's a really cool idea, and could kind of elevate the task of gardening for a lot of people.
Yeah, for sure. I do agree, and I think the more I garden, especially as I'm getting to know my garden as well, because I have a pretty new house as well. I've been on there for about 2 years, and the previous owners just built this beautiful garden. I mean, it's amazing, but it's big, and there's a lot of maintenance to it. And I found the more I do it, the more I really look forward to it. And um, the more I look forward to it, the more I try to take care of myself so that I can stay in the garden and not be, laid out on the couch or having to have ice packs or take, medication or something like
Yeah.
that and be out for a couple of days because I'm recovering. And it happens, of course.
Yeah.
I'm not, no one's perfect, but I realize as long as I'm like managing my expectations and being realistic about what I can do and scheduling things again using using the scheduling and doing those other things, I realize that I can be out there longer, more often, well, not longer, but like more often I can be out
Yeah.
there and still, kind of enjoy the garden, enjoy the birds, enjoy the flowers blooming and
Well,
all
and
the,
it's got to be
know.
more enjoyable if you feel good while you're doing it.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. It's a bummer when you're like hurting and then you can't get out the next day or two. It is a bummer. It's a bummer for me. I've
Yeah.
definitely I've
Yeah.
definitely been in that situation.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I think we've all been there. If you're a gardener, you know what Gabby's talking about. Um, so this has been great. I love just those little bits of advice. But I know that in your upcoming workshop at the Urban Homestead Expo, you'll be going into more detail and giving people some resources they can use. So I will post the link if you guys are interested. If you're interested in registering for the Urban Homestead Expo, it is a live event, but the workshops like Gabby's will be recorded and posted after the fact. So even if you're busy on that Saturday, you can go back and watch them anytime. So I'll post that link in the comments, and if you have any questions, please ask, and we'll try to get back to you in the comments as well. Gabby, thank you so much. I feel inspired. I have some gardening I need to do myself this weekend, so I feel prepared and inspired to go out and get that done. So thank you so much for your advice and for your time.
Yeah, of course, Marta. Thanks again for inviting me back and happy gardening, everybody.
That's right. Get out there this weekend and happy gardening. We'll see you next time.